Hey, everybody, it is Tim Gillette, and this is another Tim Gillette show. I'm Tim Gillette, your host. Of course, I've said my name so many times, but this is not about me. No, this show is about our guests, the great people, the coolest people on the planet, as I call them. I like to bring them on here, get to know them live on screen, and in some cases, I know a little bit about them. In some cases, I don't. Today's guest, I've actually been in a mastermind with for several years. All right. He's a very, very talented, very, very well sought after speaker. All right. Toastmaster. This gentleman, when it comes to the speaking, he is the professional of professionals. All right. I am honored to be able to grab this gentleman and bring him on the show today because it was tough getting him because he's booked all the time. All right. He has been a friend of mine for a long time, and it's an honor to bring on Mr. Randy Powell. How you doing, Randy?
How you doing? What an introduction.
Hey, I try to make lively. You know what I mean? If you act like you, what was the old thing we used to do in sales? My boss in sales used to say, you know what I mean? I want you to run up to the door and exhaustedly ring the doorbell. All right. And like act like you're out of breath and make it look like they just want to keep watching to find out what you're going to do next.
Sure. Absolutely. How are you today?
Man, I'm good, man.
Good.
The sun just came out here. I finally got the one thing on my checklist, Randy, was my wife's gone for a week, and she said, hey, can you wash my car and have it vacuumed while I'm gone? It stopped raining. I was finally able to go get that one thing off my list. Now, for the other 42 things, I don't know.
Hey, one thing is progress.
One thing is progress. That's right. So
absolutely.
So what are you up to? Good afternoon. One of our faithful attenders here.
Oh, God.
Robert Brooker, thank you for tuning in. Robert, he's a very faithful attendee and always listens to our show live. Appreciate him.
Awesome.
What are you up to, Randy?
Well, you know, I just, for the first time in my entire life, and I've lived in California for over 30 years.
I'm sorry.
I made it to Mammoth Lakes, California.
Oh.
In the mountains at the 8,000 foot level. Of course, it took me a while to get my breathing correct. But once I did, I enjoyed the fact that I was there, the pine trees, the forest, and I got to watch my wife involved in an adventure race. It was her first time, and we just had a blast. So coming off of that weekend, you know, you hit Monday running, and things have been crazy ever since. And I was excited to be here on your show.
I know it's been. I think we talked about it twice before we actually got you here. All right, because you're always like, I tell you, I got something on that date. I can't come, and I'm like, oh, we got to find a spot.
Sure. Absolutely.
So, I mean, you know, but you and your wife, you kind of enjoy your weekends. I have not known what a weekend was in like 6 years.
Ooh, this was tough getting away. You know, she had been training for it. It was a new thing. She had done triathlons before, but never an adventure. So, you know, it was just exciting to watch her and go up there and enjoy the weekend. So we did steal one weekend so far this year.
We did one. We went to Hot Springs, Arkansas, probably about a month and a half ago.
You know, I think I remember you saying something about that.
Yeah. And like for us, we just wanted to get away. I always loved it because I went to Hot Springs. It's a smaller town, unlike Dallas. Dallas is a big town. Sure. All right. There are states out there that don't have as many people in that Dallas has. Mm-hmm. So we have to wear, you know what I mean? While our state guidelines, we don't have to wear a mask. There's many places you have to because you're just so crowded with people. You have to wear a mask, right? I went to Hot Springs, Arkansas, and there's like, yeah, it's crowded downtown, but for the most part, there's space. There's not as many people. You don't have to wear a mask. It's cool. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, freedom. Freedom, absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know. Was up in Mammoth? Was it like that? Was it?
You know, it was. It was. Even though they said, hey, you know, during the start of the race, you know, there are 156 people here, and the attendees, you know, the people who are watching, viewers. So let's just kind of spread out a little bit. You know, you're supposed to wear your mask, but there was so much space. Yeah. There were a few people that had to wear it, but felt like they had to wear it.
And you know, it's for me, it's like every morning I'm putting on going into the Starbucks. Starbucks now has the rule here. You can wear it. You don't have to wear it if you've gotten the
vaccination.
The vaccine. Yeah. Right now, I mean, so like I some mornings still put it on when I go in, depending on how many people, when I walk in, how many people are in there. Sure. I have it with my hand with me just in case. Yeah. And really in the beginning of this thing, I couldn't even I can't stand to wear a mask really I'm always adjusting it to be able to breathe. I had a problem.
Pulling it away from you.
Yeah. I had a problem with, I used to paint cars back in the 90s, early 2000s. And they found you have to wear a respirator for that. It's just part of, if you don't, that fumes will kill you. And wearing the respirator painting so much, I passed out. I couldn't. Ooh. Yeah. And basically that's what he came down to. And I remember my, doctor saying, dude, you're going to have to find another line of work. And I'm like, that was the second you have to find another line of work I'd gotten at that point in my life. And I'm like, well, let me go into management.
Hey, there you go. Let me start my own business.
Well, I'd had my own businesses several times, but every time I worked a job, I actually have had 3 times in my life that I've actually had to change the job because I couldn't do it. And it just, that's part of my story, Randy. And I don't know about your story. All right. Have things like that come up in your life where it's like, okay, this is life changing. And it's not like I want to change it. It's like life says you got to change it.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, how I got into speaking, which led to coaching, was that life experience, that wall. And for me, I had been in the corporate world for, too many years. And I lost my job. And when it first happened, I couldn't even say the words. They fired me. I lost my job. They fired me. Although I had spent a lifetime of careers, 5 different careers, obviously seeing other people, seeing layoffs over the years, people lose their jobs. But until it happens to you, it just doesn't hit home as deeply. The day that it happened to me, I walked out of there and I was over 50 years old, and I thought, boy, life was over. However, it was a blessing because I had been a Toastmaster for about 8 years when this happened. And I have a coach who's a speaker coach, and she's an international coach. Her name is Cheryl Rauch. And I never forget what she said when my wife and I went down to San Diego to tell her, hey, I lost my job. Because Cheryl said to me when I first started speaking, getting involved in speaking, she said, don't quit your day job until you can support yourself full time.
Yeah.
And I remember her telling me that. And the day I lost my job, a week later, my wife and I drove down to San Diego to meet with her. And I looked at her, and of course, I'm feeling really bad about myself still. I want people to help me lick my wounds. And she said to me at the lunch table, when I told her, hey, Cheryl, I know you said don't quit your day job. I lost my job. And she said, great. And I'm looking at her, and I looked at my wife, and she said, now you've been freed up to do exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And I remember driving home from San Diego, talking with my wife and going, wow, I guess I better get on the move. I
guess that's the kick in the butt I needed, huh?
Yeah, get over it and move on. And the second life-changing for me was going to one of Craig Duswalt's masterminds. But I was invited. It was a hot seat. And I was invited by him. And I had been following Craig for a while, but I hadn't joined the mastermind yet. And I went to the hot seat and I sat down, and it came around to me, and I thought I was just a guest, so it would skip me. Lo and behold, it didn't skip me. It stopped at my seat. And I remember what they said. And Craig was the first to say, you need to get out of your own way, Randy. And I left and I drove 60 miles home. And for the next year, I tried to figure out exactly what he meant by that. And it took me, I promise you, it took me a year. And once I figured out, the light came on, everything changed at that point. And I got out of my own way.
It's funny sometimes that life has to give you the kick in the pants.
Yes, it does.
I personally in my own life, all right, one of the hardest kick in the pants for me was, I sold a large company. I had 2004, a great success story I had. And I thought that was going to be the greatest success I would ever have after what I went through at the months afterwards. Selling that company, within 6 months, the job I took, I sucked at it, and I got fired. All right. Yeah. But before I got fired on it was like a Monday or Tuesday, I got let go. On the Sunday before, my girlfriend broke up with me.
Oh, goodness.
All right. And this was someone who, this was probably one of the hardest breakups I had in my life. All right. Probably in my top 5, to let you know how many I've had. Right. But she broke up with me. That night after she broke up with me, I had a small apartment. I shut all the lights off. I lit candles. All right. And just kind of laid down on my couch to lay down and relax and just empty the world out and think.
Mm-hmm.
I had a wooden coffee table and I didn't have glass holders to put my candles in. The candle burned through the candle and caught the coffee table on fire next to me. I woke up to my apartment on fire.
Oh my goodness.
2 days later, I'm let go from my job.
Mm.
Being let go from my job was I worked for a friend who owned the company, but he wasn't my direct supervisor.
Sure.
My direct supervisor had to let me go, and my friend who owned the company wasn't in town. So my direct supervisor took it upon himself to wisely make a decision because the car I was buying from my boss, my friend. So he decided to say, not only do you not have a job, but you've got to leave the car here and get a ride home.
Ouch.
Within 4 days, I lost the woman I thought I was going to marry, my home, my job, my car, and I had $62 in my bank account.
Wow, I really feel a lot better now. Oh my goodness.
Wait a minute, I don't consider that a bad thing anymore. At the time I did. At the time I was devastated.
Sure, at the time, yeah, absolutely.
But like we were just saying, it was a kick in the pants.
And you're right. We do need that. And, if it hadn't been for that, there's probably no telling. I might have just rolled over and done nothing else the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. I know that people do that. And part of what I'm trying to do with my business is to help people who are in that space where they think they're not going to ever make it, not ever going to achieve the success that they want in life as they define success. My goal is to help people understand that it's never too late. A kick in the pants is going to happen. That's called life. And you need to figure out how to get back on the horse and ride. And so everything I do is focused on helping people become more, do more, get more out of life and achieve greater success.
Exactly. So, well, Randy, I've gone through a lot of this. We've gone through a lot of transitions in life. All right. Mm-hmm. How many coaches have you hired over the years? Do you even have a number on that, or did you stop counting like me?
No, I think I've probably stopped counting, but there are a few that really stick out, Mm-hmm. My main speaking coach sticks out. She's a wonderful individual.
You said Cheryl Rausch?
Cheryl Rausch. She's an accredited.
I think I know who she is.
Yeah, you probably do. Yeah,
I'm probably friends with her on Facebook.
You probably are. If you're friends with me, you've seen her. Cheryl Rausch is one. I had the chance also to have a weekend education with a gentleman by the name of Dana Lamont. Now, I wouldn't call him a coach, but he certainly was an inspiration. He has a very deep voice. He's one of the only he's the only individual who is an accredited speaker and has won the world championship of public speaking. Mm. And he is a retired judge. And I got the chance to travel with him over a weekend. And I'll say I got an associate's degree when I first started speaking in a weekend. Yeah. Because it really was an eye-opening experience, a lot of learning. And that really moved me to the next level. So I wouldn't necessarily call him a coach because I didn't spend a long period of time with him, but I did have one powerful weekend with him. Yeah. So that's one gentleman. And also, there are people that you might call mentors / coaches in my life. And I've had many of those. So I don't know if you really call them mentors or coaches, but in terms of paying a coach, I've probably had 5 that I've paid. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as a number.
Yeah. It's like, I think I stopped counting, and I don't even remember how many. I'd have to really sit there and play games that I'm not going to on the air today, but how many I've paid, I can't think of it. Yeah. But I find it interesting, that most people who come on here that are coaches have hired more than one coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
How do you put that into your coaching, all right, of telling people that you're working with, all right? Mm-hmm. You say, hey, you need another coach for this part. Let's go talk to this person.
As a matter of fact, I have a gentleman that used to live here. He's a voice coach, and mm-hmm. he's now relocated to the center of the country over in Iowa. And we were just talking a couple of weeks ago. He called for some advice. And I use him and I point people in his direction that need to have voice training and voice coaching. For example, I've coached individuals who have had really high pitched voices,
Mm-hmm.
and they've had to bring that pitch down. And well, I can't teach them how to do that. So I send them to a specialist like a voice coach. And so that's one example of someone I use. And, I always tell, I'm okay with telling people that I'm coaching that my average coaching client hangs around me and we hang out technically for about 3 years. That's about what it takes in our relationship in general. And then I have them, they go to a different type of coach. They go do something, have some advances, and then they come back. Mm-hmm. And I just recently had a client come back. She lives in Hawaii, and she's now coming back to be coached some more. So mm-hmm. It's kind of this ebb and flow, go and come. But the average stays with me 3 years as a hardcore coaching client. Does that answer that question?
That does, of course. And of course, I'm sitting down here writing down next questions I'm going to ask you. But anyway,
sure, absolutely.
Hey, Randy, when it comes to the people you work with in your coaching business, are you sharing with them like life experiences? Or are you based it on like a structured program? This is the structured program I built, or do you have a life experience? Let me help you from my experience type.
Well, mine is a hybrid. Excuse me. Mine is a hybrid. So I'm glad you asked that question, because what really got me into speaking was my own life experience with losing my job and feeling as though I had lost everything. And what was I going to say to my adult children, who I'm trying to continue to, of course, be a role model for? And also, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Because even though I was older, I felt like of the fountain of youth. I have a lot of energy. I'm hyperactive. I want to keep going. I love life to its fullest, and I want to live that. So my story, part of that story is I have asthma, and several years ago, I had a near-death experience. I had 3 life experiences with some acute shutdowns. 2 of them were on the road when I was traveling in the corporate world, and one was right here close to home. And I happened to be lucky enough to live very close to Loma Linda Medical University. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And about 4 o'clock in the morning, I was heading out to go to work at Northrop. I worked at Northrop for some years in research and development. And what happened was I had an acute shutdown, and I had never had one that serious. The medicine, the inhaler wasn't working. And I made the mistake of going upstairs to ask my wife to take me to the hospital, which was just 2 miles down the road. By the time I went up and came back down, things were shutting down even quicker. And by the time I got to the hospital and got to the emergency room doors, I passed out. And 3 days later, I was intubated. So that experience of coming back and being brought back to life, so to speak, was a pivoting point. And I used that plus the fact that I lost my job as what I call wake-up calls. Yeah, and those we all get wake-up calls throughout life. And some wake-up calls are really attention grabbers. And you need to do something different when that happens, because we get wake-up calls all the time. You're driving down the freeway, you get a close call, you see something happening that, wow, that's a wake-up call. That could have been me, but we have to make adjustments. And then those big wake-up calls are the things that we have to pay attention to, or we should. And so I use that life experience of loving life, having a second chance, losing my job and going, I'm here for a reason. So now I've got to figure out what that is. So what I did was I talked to my coach, and she said, go back and look at what you've been doing over the past several years, Randy. So I did. And what came out of that was not only the revelation that I'm here for a purpose, a reason, what was my purpose? So I developed the blueprint for success, which is a model that I use while I'm coaching and teaching and speaking. And I don't always speak on the entire process, but one of the most important areas that I speak on is purpose. And I help people and bring people to the realization, or my goal is to help them realize that if they're breathing, they're walking around, they have a purpose. Yeah. And that purpose is the gateway to their success, however they define success and however they tie that into their dreams.
Cool. And it's interesting how life experiences teach us. And I mean, I went through a life enrichment seminar in 2003 before I sold my business. All right. Mm-hmm. I think it was probably the eye opener for me. Sure. And one of my one of the directors or facilitators of the event recommended, Tim, a good book for you would be, it was like Dr. Phil's 7 Things to Having Purpose or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. But he talked about that. All right. You know what I mean? That very concept. You've got a purpose. If you're still breathing, you got a purpose.
Right.
And he talked about, life-changing moments. All right. And it's me. I mean, I know Craig has shared with this at some of his event about life-changing moments and your life-changing story. And I remember one event where Craig did it. I think it was like a life type, rock your life type event when he was doing life and health and stuff like that. And the guy who was leading it with Craig basically did this whole thing off of Bo Eason's, your life-changing moment to tell a story. And I was like, okay, cool. So I put my stuff down and I went to get coffee, and Craig's coming out to get coffee. He says, aren't you going to work on this one? And I'm like, no, Craig, I can tell you my life-changing story between now and when we get down to the coffee shop. And Craig at that point couldn't tell his without tears coming to his eyes.
Yeah.
I could. And I said, and literally I told it to him, and he's like, wow. And I said, the difference is, Craig, is I've been telling mine for 8 years. I knew it was a life-changing story when I went through the Dr. Phil book.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, because even with I don't talk a lot about the near-death experience.
Yeah.
There were a couple ministers over the years that asked me. There were a couple researchers that asked me to share my story in that story. And it took me years to decide it was okay to do it. And then, like you said, it brings tears to your eyes, and it's hard to hold back.
Yeah.
And it takes time to be able to do that, to be able to share your story, whether it's in a keynote speech or a talk of some other type. And it takes years to be able to do that. And it was just recently, in the last few years, I've been able to do it when appropriate, with showing the emotion, but without breaking down. And I teach my clients the same thing. You have to be able to share your story, but you can't break down while you're sharing it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you got to have emotion into it, but you can't. Right. But you got to be able to convey the message.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I found that interesting. All right. Now, one of the things that I didn't do, I mean, I got into speaking because I knew Zig Ziglar and I watched his car. I mean, the bizarrest things. I never got training from Zig or anything like that, but that's how I get into this, right? I never went to like Toastmasters, which so many people do. And Zig, basically, if he was alive, probably would have told me I didn't need it. All right. Other than maybe to learn. There's skills you learn at Toastmasters that are, to help make your speech better. But I've always looked at Toastmasters and I've sent clients to it as, man, this will get you over your fear of speaking, as well as your fear of a lot of other things. It'll help you learn confidence. So
absolutely.
I want your because I know you were spent many years with them. Give me your opinion on that.
Well, I'm still a Toastmaster. I'm connected to one advanced professional speaking club. But what I tell my clients, and what I often tell people that are asking about it, go there and find out if that's something you really enjoy. Number one, I call it the basic training for public speaking. It's real basic training. It's awesome. It's a great program, but it's not going to teach you how to connect with people on an emotional level when you're out trying to make things happen for other people. Yeah. So it's basic training, but then you need more. And if you're serious about becoming a professional speaker, and I tell people, there's a difference between professional speaking and public speaking. And a lot of people don't understand the difference. And public speaking, anytime you're with a group of people, more than one, you actually are engaged in public speaking.
That's right.
What the difference is, and you can also speak professionally about your business or what you're doing. So there's professional speaking from that standpoint as well. And then there's the keynote speaking, the conference speaking, and that is a different type of communication, a different type of speaking, and they all require different skills. And so I teach people, go there, get your feet wet, see if you really like it, and spend some time there, and then let's talk. So there are times when I'll send people to Toastmasters first.
Yeah. Now, I know I had a client who really needed it for confidence. I mean, she really needed it for confidence. And she went through it and got confidence and basically came back. When she came back to me, and she was in my program for another like 6 months afterwards. When she finally got the confidence, she goes, you know what? This helped me realize is I'm going down a path that I don't want to go.
Yeah.
I'm going to go do blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. I mean, and that basically started the end of our coaching because she wanted to go work in a career that she really learned she always wanted to do. And Toastmasters got her to speak up and realize, hey, I don't have to listen to what my husband tells me I need to do, or my dad tells me I need to do, or my uncle, or my, I can pick what I want to do. And I said to her, I was successful at coaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she's like, you're not upset that I'm leaving the coaching program? I'm like, no, you no longer need me. That's the point. I want you to no longer need me.
and it is hard to get people to understand that, they might need another coach. You're not everything for everybody. Yeah. You have a specific time and a specific space that you operate within. And when they move on past that, then you hand them off to someone else. And that's the way of the world. That's what the universe expects of us.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I always look at it in the way. I mean, I knew Zig personally, not Zig the speaker. I knew Zig the person. And Zig the person, one of the greatest things I said about, and I speak every year at the devotional at Ziegler headquarters, and it's an honor that they invite me back every year. And I was speaking at it recently, and I said, one of the greatest things that I've carried with me in my life was, I was just getting started with my speaking career finally when Zig passed away. And I said, for me, it was great because I got to know personal Zig, who basically said when they told him he was, okay, your time's up, you're going to pass away soon. He actually said, oh, great, I get to graduate finally. I'm done learning.
Goodness.
And I'm like, what a concept. All right, you think about, we think about, I'm done high school, I graduated. No, you're not done learning in life until they put you in that grave, ladies and gentlemen.
That is so true. And to wake up every morning looking forward to learning something new. I was on a call this morning, group of kids. I think there must have been 40. I was asked to speak to a class of fifth graders. And my goodness, I told them that, because they wanted to understand what the professional speaker does and what the coach does. And one kid said, well, you must make a lot of money. And I answered that question. I said, that is no. And one kid said, you're really rich. And I thought, well, yeah, I am rich in a lot of ways. And I explained some of the ways that I was rich in. We never talked about dollar amounts or anything like that. So I got them to shift away from the money to what they can do when they grow up and add value back to the world. And that's where the richness comes from. Yeah, I noticed that the more value I gave to the world, the less money I had to worry about. That's right. It's just the way it is. That's like a key that most people won't get. And I remember as a kid going, you must make a lot of money, not going, if you just give value to the world, less and less the money problems are there. Yeah. And it's hard for people to really hang in there until that happens. That's why the book 3 Feet from Gold, people give up too soon and they do. It's hard and it's not easy. And if somebody says it's easy, then they just need to run away from them because it's really not easy. It's hard work. And if you came from the working class, so to speak, that mindset of going to work and punching a clock or doing your 8 to 5, and now all of a sudden you're trying to become your own thing and sustain yourself and your family and create your own business, whether it's online or live or a hybrid of that, it's not easy. You can say it's easy to help people kind of digest it, but it's really hard, dedicated work, and it takes every single day, your energy, your everything you have to get to be successful, whatever that is by you, and however you define that. And I always make sure that my brand is Envision Success. I also own Envision Success Coaching. But the word success is something that I always clarify by saying success is a general term. Success is defined by you, the individual. Everyone's definition of success is probably a little different. And if it's not, it should be, because it needs to be unique to who you are, what you want out of life, and what you plan on, how you want to live your life, your lifestyle, and all of that great stuff. So I try to make sure that people understand it's a generic term, because people understand some sense of success. That means you made it. That means you're happy. That means you're this or that. And so that's why the word is so powerful, but you have to define it for yourself. It goes back to one of those stories I had that were life-changing stories. And my brother doesn't remember this, and he was sitting in the same room. Oh,
And we were like 11 or 12 years old. It was a Sunday school lesson at church. And our Sunday school teacher turned 40 years old that week. And rather than pull a verse out of the Bible to teach, his entire Sunday school lesson was, if you could define your life in one word at age 40, what would that word be? And he went around the table and each one of us gave our word and he critiqued it up and down and everything. And then when it got all the way done, he came to the back and he says, I find it interesting. Some of you said doctors, some of you said lawyers, some of you said, whatever. None of you said, I hope I'm successful. Let's pray. And that was the end of the Sunday school. I'm like, that impacted me so much.
Yeah, it is. It's a powerful word, but you really have to dig deep to figure out what that means for you, and be sincere and be in reality, not out of reality when you're trying to define it.
Exactly.
There's some things that are realistic. Like, I will never be an astronaut. I love outer space. I love Star Trek. I love thinking that, boy, wouldn't it be great to get to the end of the universe, to travel and be woken up and say, I'm here, I can experience this. But as a traveler, yes, but as an astronaut, it's not going to happen. You have to be realistic with yourself, and the world and the universe will be realistic with you.
I know. There was something I wanted to do. I wanted to have my own plane. All right. Not necessarily a jet, but my own plane, like just be able to fly like myself. Right. And in 1992, one of my job changes that I got kicked out of was having an epileptic seizure on the job. Boom. I can't drive truck for the rest of my life. I cannot fly a plane for the rest of my life. Boom. I want to, but everybody goes, you can do anything you want. No, not necessarily.
No,
your body still holds constrictions. You can do everything you want within the restrictions of what God has given you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And most people will look at that as constriction. I just have to go make more money and pay somebody to fly the plane for me now.
That's right. That's a great attitude, because you're not meant to do everything you want to do.
No.
He, as you said, the man above, the God we know, has designed what you can and cannot do. And your job is to figure it out and amplify it for the world.
And use it for the best. So
that's right.
Randy, one of the questions I always like to talk to people, and this is something that came to me. I was 21 years of age. I worked a part-time job on top of my full-time job. I was about to have my first kid, and it was a gas station. I worked at a Texaco gas station, not a big job, and in Tewksbury, Massachusetts, of all places. And I had a problem dealing with somebody else at work during my night shift every night. And I went into my boss one night and I asked him, I said, Frank, how do I handle this? Dave comes in every night. He's in my way. I can't get things done. I can't take care of the customers. And Frank gave me a piece of advice to help me with a job that turned out to be life advice. The advice was to me, Tim, when you're here at this company and you're punched in here at 4:00 when you punch in until 10:00 when you punch out, this is your company. You own it. If it costs a dime out of the register, it's a dime out of your pocket. If it makes a dime, it's your dime. You're making it. You run this business that way and you'll not have a problem ever again. That became life advice for me. Take ownership of everything you do.
Yeah.
Did someone ever give you advice like that when you were younger that now drives you still 30, 40 years later?
First of all, I want to mention that I worked at a gas station, Hess. Back east, I grew up in South Jersey, and Emirata Hess was a big thing back then. And I was young, 17, working at a gas station in the night shift, and people would drive past coming from Atlantic City. They lost all their money, and they'd be upset, and they'd pull in, and you know how that goes. And that's when gas was like 46 cents a gallon, 32, 42, somewhere in there.
I may have stopped at that gas station on the way back from Atlantic City a time or two.
So it's funny. And I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, and you mentioned Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Life-changing advice. My history teacher in high school, I'll never forget him. We called him Mr. D. His name was DeStefano. And Mr. D always gave great advice. And he was, the type of individual who he dressed so well that the average teacher was jealous. He was very flamboyant, stylish, extremely smart. And at the end of every class, he gave us a golden nugget. And one of the things that he said was never stop trying. Never stop trying.
That one.
Simple as that. Never stop trying. So I remember Mr. D. I remember his flamboyant dressing. He was sharp. He was ahead of his time. And he every day when the bell rang, he left us with some golden nugget. And the one that sticks out is never stop trying.
Interesting that would be yours. So yeah, by the way, I mean, I'm just curious, it sounds like you've lived in more places like that. I grew up in Pennsylvania. I was born in Scranton, lived in Philly, Boston. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Did some time in Florida, and now in Texas. But
yeah, I was born in Boston, ended up in a little town called Mount Holly, New Jersey. Right.
Been there?
Yeah. Mount Holly, Burlington, not far from Philadelphia. Yeah. I used to hang out. I have to say, I used to hang out sometimes in one of the toughest cities, Camden, New Jersey. As a young adult, I would go over there because I wanted to be close to the action. But the military sent me around a little bit. But other than that, I came to California in '82, and I've been here ever since. I do have relatives in Dallas. Our last family reunion was down in Dallas. And it's interesting that so many people we know are headed that way. But I'm still close to Dallas, so it's okay.
So, hey, there's two things you're coming to Dallas for this year.
Okay.
Number one is Craig's conference. Number one is Craig's conference.
Craig.
Number two is Tim Gillette's blog and video con.
When is that?
November 4th, 5th, 6th. You're coming, right? I got to throw that in there. Ladies and gentlemen, to you, the audience, you're coming, right?
Now that you've told me I'm coming. But let's just make sure there's no snow.
I don't think in November we're going to have snow in Dallas
because
we're still in like hot days, like in the 80s in November. Snow hits about January, February here.
Yeah, I love looking at it, but my goodness,
I moved from Philadelphia to Texas to get away from snow.
Yeah, okay.
I was done.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I always did then too, like one of the closing questions I've always liked to ask is, what nugget of advice would you give the audience who is listening into this today?
I would ask them to ask the question of themselves: have they found their purpose? Are they living their purpose? We can do a lot of great things in life. We can work for multitudes of companies. We can make other people wealthy. We can share our gifts and talents with the world for other people. But is it what you were meant to do? We all have gifts and talents. There's one thing that if you go in search of it, you'll figure that out. And so my guess is there are some people who are listening that are doing some wonderful things, but they might not have found that one thing that leads them to the happiness, fulfillment, and success that they want. And if that's the case, just ask the question. And if they join us for a webinar that's coming up soon, then they'll get a little bit more information on that.
Cool. I love that. So, well, Randy, what is the best website that people can get a hold of you, all right, and get to find out more about you and connect and maybe get on your newsletter list and stuff like that?
Oh, absolutely. And it's real easy. It's randypowell.com or randypowellspeaks.com, and you'll see it at the bottom of the screen. And there's an event coming up this week as well, Tim. It's Thursday. In fact, Craig Duswald is a special guest on that webinar. We're going to be covering the freedom number and my blueprint for success. And inside that blueprint, we talk about purpose. So if there's somebody here that really is not sure, and you'll know if you've identified your purpose and working in it, you'll know it already. So cool. There you have it, randypowellspeaks.com.
So Randy, if they listen to this later on in the audio, you'll be doing that webinar again, or you'll have it recorded to repeat for those people who
it'll be recorded. Yeah, absolutely. It's a free webinar. It's informational. It'll be recorded and it'll be on the website, randypowellspeaks.com.
Cool. Well, Randy, all right, before you go, all right, I have this wonderful little game I play with all of my guests called This or That.
Let's do it.
9 questions, Randy. 2 choices. You pick which one matches you, and maybe we'll talk about it. Maybe we won't. I don't know. Some things pry discussion. Some things just are it.
Okay.
Number 1, I pretty much know. You kind of gave the answer away to this one earlier, but it's one I ask every guest. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Wow. See, earlier you said you like Star Trek, and I thought, he's going to be a Picard kind of guy.
Well, I mean, I watch them both, but if I had my choice as far as movies and being there in the action, I'd have to go with Star Wars.
So, good. So in the past year, all right, we've gotten to stay at home a lot, and some of our speaking gigs, we're able to choose this option: pajama bottoms or pants.
Yeah, I do the pants.
I still wear jeans everywhere I go, but still, I did my first speaking gig on virtually in the pandemic with my pajama bottoms on, just to say I did it.
Well, I have to admit, I don't wear pajama bottoms, so.
I do around the house. Like when Gwen comes home at night, after I go downstairs, that's like a ritual for us. We just switch and put pajamas on.
I mean, I have my robe.
Yeah.
I have my robe.
I don't wear my pajamas to bed, but I wear them like that's the around the house attire to relax in the evening. I just
you're lounging around.
That's like a mental note. Okay, I'm done because I work from home. I'm done with work. It's time to check out. Yeah. The next one I'd like to ask people. All right, in your car. Nowadays, a lot of people have changed what they listen to. Are you a guy who listens to podcasts, or you listen to music in your car?
I got to be honest with you. In the car, 9 times out of 10, it's not a podcast. I'm still in the Temptations and the old soul music and the blues and jazz. So I'm typically, even though it's coming through YouTube or some other channel, Sirius, it's one of those.
So my mom and I have coffee every morning, and we take my car to go get coffee, and every now and then a song on my playlist comes up. She goes, "I can't believe you have this," and I'm like, "Yeah." One of them is "She Can't Believe," and it's not really an oldie song, but Herb Alpert did this song called "Rise" in the 1970s. You remember it?
Mm-hmm.
Just a cool bass line.
Yeah.
The whole thing. You're like, and mom's like, "I can't believe this is a song," and I'm like, "Yeah, this is awesome."
Yeah. In fact, sometimes I'm listening to some oldies. And I go, wow, I haven't heard that. And I shut up. How many years it's been?
I looked at that person. I thought, man, they're old. And I realized, oh, crap, we went to high school together.
Yeah.
How about this one? We're going out for a snack. You're going to have a taco or a hamburger?
We're going out it's just a snack, though. It's not it's not dinner. It's a snack.
Well, it could be whatever you want. Which one are you going to have, taco or hamburger?
I'm going to have the tacos, especially if we can go to one out here in California. I got a great location out here.
Okay, so the best tacos.
Awesome street tacos.
Yeah, it's got to be street tacos. The most awesome street tacos I ever had was the car wash industry. Was a guy who used to come around and make them out of the trunk of his car. Those are the best street tacos I've ever had.
Okay, so if you're ever out here again, and we can get you down here in northern San Diego County, just south of Temecula, where I live, it's only about 40 minutes away, if that. Oh my God! I don't know if I can get you to leave. You might want to buy into the business.
Oh wow! Now I will say that I have a rule in California. It's got to be tacos, but no Mexican food.
No problem.
All right, you don't know the story behind that. You've not been in Craig's mastermind long enough. The first mastermind of Craig's I ever went to, ever. The last night, back then it was like 3-day masterminds, right?
Yeah.
So the last night of it before the last day, everybody wanted to go to the Mexican food restaurant, and I'm like, I don't like Mexican food, but I'll go because everybody else is going.
Sure.
I spent the whole last day of the mastermind in my hotel room sick.
You were sick. Oh my.
Yeah, goodness. And I just that became a rule. No Mexican food in California, because one other time I tried it and I got sick again. I'm like, California and Mexican food don't go.
I'm almost
cross
ready.
over the Arizona line, I'll have Mexican food. You cross over to California, like, no Mexican food.
I'm almost ready to promise you that you won't get sick here. Not on these street tacos.
Not street tacos. No, this was Mexican food, not tacos. Mexican food. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And it's just interesting you said it because you really don't. That's a story that Craig doesn't tell that often, because like I was sick the whole day, and everybody's like, he's like, the whole day, where's Tim? And he's like, and the person who was sharing a room was like, Tim's throwing up. He's in the bathroom in a room. He's not coming in today.
Oh my goodness. Horrible. No wonder you don't eat Mexican food.
Only in California. I'll have Mexican food in Florida and Texas all day long, right?
Or California.
No, California. So, but wait a minute. But when you go to different towns, do you have different food you like to eat in different towns?
Of course.
Yeah. What when you go to Chicago, what's the first thing you think to go eat?
Pizza.
Chicago, you think pizza?
I do.
I can't believe you grew up on the East Coast.
I know, but the reason in Chicago, and I only ever got it at the Now it's Italian food. I mean, if you want to get technical for dinner, it's straight to the Italian restaurants. But when I'm passing through the airport, there's something about their pizza that's different than back east pizza. That's way different than pizza in California. Pizza in California, it's not even close. Yeah. And
I'm a Brooklyn pizza guy.
Yeah.
That's the stuff I like. But no,
where we grew up, there were delis on every corner, pizza parlors in every little plaza. I mean, it's just the way it was. Jewish delis, Polish delis. It just was a totally different world. So,
but me in Chicago, hot dog.
Well, yeah, Chicago hot dog.
Yeah, one of the greats. I mean, I go to Philly.
Mm-hmm.
I get a cheesesteak, and wait a minute. I only go down to Pat's to get my cheesesteak.
Well, you don't and I go to Gino's to get the pizza, and I go to Pat's, and we used to do that as teenagers. We'd go clubbing in Philly, and then we'd hit Pat's on the way to cross the bridge to get back to Jersey. And we'd normally order 2, and they were this long.
Yeah. Pat's, that was our after the bar food back then.
Yep. Hit the club, then go there.
Yep. My next one here: beer or wine?
Oh gosh. If it's really, really hot out, I'll take the cold beer. If it's an evening and it's a summer concert, I'll take a glass of wine.
Yeah. I'm kind of that way too. I don't really have a favorite of the two. It's all depending on what I want to do at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
there's something about not having wine in the middle of the day after cutting the grass, although I don't cut grass anymore.
Yeah.
It makes me think about a cold beer, working in the yard, sitting on the porch versus a nice glass.
I visited my brother in San Jose a couple of years ago, and I got there right about noon, about the time on Saturday when he was done doing his lawn. And he goes, "You showed up just in time for beer time." And I'm like, "Heck yeah, I'm not stupid."
You got to go with it. Everything is timing.
Yeah,
everything.
So I go to Craig's house. Craig knows that, like, he got me hooked on like a whiskey he had because he's drinking wine and I'm drinking his whiskey. So yeah, I'm a whiskey drinker. I got many bottles on my desk.
Well, if you're a whiskey drinker, I'm gonna turn you on offline to a whiskey that's new, and another group that I'm a part of. Mm-hmm. She's part of this group, the owner, the founder of this distillery, and it's really smooth. And I'm not a whiskey drinker.
Yeah,
but it's really smooth.
I want to start a podcast called Moonshine and Barbecue.
Great.
I'm a moonshine whiskey and type person, so but that's something like that's always those two things interest me, and I just have yet to do it. So let me move on here. Ice cream, vanilla or chocolate?
Oh, chocolate.
Chocolate. Okay.
Yeah. Chocolate all the way.
When you go into the movies, do you get popcorn or candy?
Oh, popcorn. I mean, how can you go in a movie theater and not get popcorn? And then you got to sit there and suffer through the movie because you smell it and you hear everybody crunching on it. Don't you feel left out? and not just a little tiny bag, really, come on. Yeah,
the refillable.
If you're gonna do it, have
honey,
fun.
We're empty, go get this refilled. I don't want to quit watching the movie.
That's right. If you're gonna do it, have fun or stay home.
I love it. So my last two are the controversial questions that everybody some wars have been started over this next one.
Okay,
and that is toilet paper at your house, does it go over on the roll or under?
It goes over. I mean, come on. Who wants to dig underneath to pull it down when you're in an emergency situation? You just want to roll that sucker down and down.
So this Randy has been the most interesting question to ask on my podcast because I've had answers like, these people who are all sunshine, rainbows, unicorns, and all lovey-dovey, and why can't we all get along? You ask that question, and they're like fangs. Over!
Yeah, over. Just give it to me, baby. and here's the thing: have a spare one close by. You never know.
What? Wait a minute. That's my thing in the bathroom. What person doesn't have a spare sitting there?
Why not?
Growing up in the Northeast, it was a Barbie doll, all right, with a knit big dress that was over and it sat as a decoration on the back of the toilet.
And it was underneath. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So,
yep.
My last question, I always like this one here. And yes, I've had conversations about this with guys on my podcast.
Okay, let's do it.
Boxers or briefs?
Wait, say that again?
Boxers or briefs?
Briefs, but they got to be a special kind of brief. Okay.
Not a tighty-whitey kind of guy is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not a tighty-whitey kind of guy, not at all. And they got to hug nice, and they have to have great material, you know. And I can recommend some to you. My brother, in fact, sent him some not too long ago. A lady sent him some, and then he sent me a package because he loved them so much.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'll do that offline. But they're great.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. That's just I've had conversations, and I've had one guy was actually, we finished up early one day, and we had a 10-minute conversation about the underwear we wear. Yeah. Only I could have a discussion with another guy about underwear.
Well, I can't imagine anybody wearing white ones now. Anyhow, it's just not stylish.
No. Well, Randy, I appreciate you being on the show today. One more time, tell everybody your website so they can find you and get to know you.
Oh, absolutely. It's randypowellspeaks.com. That's randypowellspeaks.com. Powell, like General Colin Powell.
Cool. Well, Randy, I thank you for being on the show. And, and as always, it's been great having you as a guest.
Hey, thanks a lot, Tim. It's been fun.
Yeah. To you, the listeners, I want to thank you for tuning in today. All right. Thank you for the many comments, the many emails and stuff you send us here with all the guests that you've been sending us. Appreciate you listening in, tuning in, and subscribing to our podcast. Please go subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Tim Gillette. Help us get our numbers up there and be successful on YouTube as well. I'm Tim Gillette, and I'll be back real soon with another great guest. In the meantime, guys, have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.